They gave every cousin a share of Grandpa's company except me and said, "You don't have the skills." So I launched a competitor and just stole their biggest client worth $5 million. Before I go on, please take a second to subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our little family from all over the world. The lawyer's office smelled like old leather and broken promises. I sat in that stiff-backed chair, sandwiched between my cousins Desmond and Nancy, watching Mr. Henderson shuffle papers with trembling hands. Grandpa Joe had been gone 3 weeks, and my chest still ached every time I thought about his empty workshop. He taught me everything about industrial supply chains, spending countless Saturday mornings showing me how to read blueprints and negotiate contracts. "Amy, baby girl," he'd say, tapping my forehead gently, "you got the sharpest mind in this family. Don't let nobody tell you different." But apparently sharp minds didn't matter when it came to his will. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. Joseph Maxwell's industrial supply company, Maxwell & Sons, will be divided equally among his grandchildren, Desmond, Nancy, Devon, Amber, and Jamal. My name never came. I sat there frozen as he continued listing assets. Each cousin got 20%. I got Grandpa's vintage watch and $5,000. For personal expenses, the will read. Desmond smirked at me across the table. Nancy suddenly found her phone fascinating. My Uncle Raymond, Grandpa's oldest son, finally spoke up. "Now, Amy, don't take this personal. Your grandfather and I discussed this thoroughly before he passed. The business requires certain skills, experience. You're still young, still figuring things out with that little marketing job of yours." Little marketing job. I'd spent 7 years building brand strategies for Fortune 500 companies, but sure, little marketing job. My hands clenched around the armrests. I couldn't breathe. The room felt smaller, walls pressing in. "Uncle Raymond, I worked with Grandpa every weekend for 12 years. I helped him land the Henderson industrial contract. I redesigned his entire supplier database." He waved his hand dismissively, that same condescending gesture he'd perfected over years of family dinners. "Helping out isn't the same as running a multi-million-dollar operation, sweetheart. Your cousins have been preparing for this. Desmond has his business degree. Nancy worked in operations. Devon's got his MBA. Devon partied his way through business school and Desmond hasn't held a job longer than 8 months. I said, my voice sharper than intended. The truth hung in the air like smoke. My Aunt Diane gasped dramatically, clutching her purse. "Amy Marie Ivory, you apologize right now. This is not the time or place for your jealousy." Jealousy. That word punched through my ribs. This wasn't jealousy. This was betrayal wrapped in legal documents and fake sympathy. Mr. Henderson looked uncomfortable, adjusting his glasses. "Miss Ivory, your grandfather did leave specific instructions. He felt the business needed continuity, family members who understood the legacy." "I understood the legacy better than anyone," I interrupted, standing up. My chair scraped against hardwood. "I was there every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. Where were they?" I pointed at my cousins. Nancy finally looked up from her phone, eyes cold. "Grandpa knew what he was doing, Amy. Maybe it's time you accepted that you just don't have what it takes." I walked out of that office with Grandpa's watch burning against my wrist. The parking lot stretched before me, asphalt shimmering in the Atlanta heat. My phone buzzed. Mama calling for the 3rd time. I couldn't talk to her yet. Couldn't explain how her father had essentially told me I wasn't good enough, wasn't worthy, wasn't family enough to inherit what I'd helped build. 3 days later, I stood in my childhood home's kitchen, facing the entire family at Sunday dinner. The smell of Mama's peach cobbler usually brought comfort. Today it made me nauseous. Uncle Raymond sat at the head of the table, Grandpa's seat, like he'd already claimed the throne. "We need to discuss the transition plan," he announced, cutting into his ham. The 5 of you will need to attend the board meeting next Tuesday. Amy, you're welcome to join as an observer if you'd like. An observer? In the company I'd bled for. Why wasn't I included in the will? I asked, my voice steady despite the trembling in my chest. The table went silent. Forks stopped midair. Aunt Diane set down her sweet tea with a heavy clink. Baby, we already explained this, Mama said softly, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Doubt? Guilt? No, I pressed. I want to hear it from Uncle Raymond. What exactly did Grandpa say about me? Uncle Raymond wiped his mouth slowly, deliberately. Your grandfather felt you lacked focus. You never committed to the business full-time. You were always chasing other opportunities. That's bullshit and you know it. The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. Mama's hand flew to her chest. My younger brother Terrence's eyes went wide. But I was done being polite. I offered to come work full-time 3 years ago. Grandpa said yes. You told him I'd be a distraction. Uncle Raymond's face darkened. You need to watch your tone. I found the emails. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking but steady enough to navigate to my screenshots. Grandpa's assistant, Mrs. Wright, sent them to me yesterday. She thought I should know the truth before she retired. I started reading aloud, my voice cutting through the shocked silence. Raymond, Amy's proven herself more than capable. I want to bring her on as operations manager. That was dated March 2021. Your response? Dad, you're being sentimental. She's not ready. Besides, we've already promised Desmond that position. Desmond slammed his hand on the table. That's private correspondence. There's more, I continued, scrolling. November 2022. Raymond, I'm changing my will to include Amy as an equal partner. Your response? That wouldn't be fair to the others who've been loyal. She has her own career. She doesn't need the business like they do. My voice cracked on the last word. Need. Like inheritance was about need instead of love, legacy, recognition. Mama's chair scraped back. Raymond, please tell me this isn't true. Her voice carried a weight I'd never heard before. Uncle Raymond's jaw clenched. You're taking things out of context. Mrs. Wright had sent me 17 emails total. Each one showed a pattern. Grandpa trying to include me, Uncle Raymond blocking it with careful manipulation. He was sick, getting confused. Uncle Raymond would write, let's not make any major changes right now. Then later, the kids are counting on this, Dad. You can't pull the rug out from under them. But the email that destroyed me was dated January 15th, 2 months before Grandpa died. I want Amy to have her share, Raymond. She's earned it. Change the will this week. Uncle Raymond's response came 3 days later. Dad, we talked about this. You agreed Amy's better off pursuing her own path. Remember? You said she doesn't have the temperament for family business politics. Let's keep things as planned. I looked at my grandfather's brother, my uncle, the man who'd eaten at our table for 40 years, and saw a stranger. You lied to him. When he was sick, confused from the medication, you convinced him he'd said things he never said. You manipulated a dying man to steal my inheritance. The room erupted. Cousins shouting, Mama crying, Aunt Diane screaming about family loyalty. But Uncle Raymond just sat there stone-faced until finally he spoke. I did what was best for the business in this family. You would have torn us apart with your ideas and your pride. The decision is made, Amy. Legal and final. If you can't accept it, maybe you should leave. That's when something inside me shattered and reformed into something harder, sharper. I stood up, grabbed my coat and headed for the door. Mama caught my arm. Baby, please. I'm done, Mama. With all of them. I spent that night in my apartment, Grandpa's watch on the table, Those emails burning in my mind. Around 2 a.m. clarity hit. I wasn't going to beg. Wasn't going to fight for scraps from people who'd never valued me. I was going to build something that made Maxwell & Sons look like a corner store. I'd saved $47,000 from my marketing job. Had another $15,000 in investments. The $5,000 from Grandpa put me at $67,000. Not enough to compete directly, but enough to start smart. I called my best friend Tasha at sunrise. I need your cousin, the lawyer. The one who handles business incorporation. Girl, it's 6 a.m., she groaned, but I heard sheets rustling. What's going on? I'm starting a war. By Monday, I'd formed Ivory Industrial Solutions, LLC. By Wednesday, I'd rented a small office in a shared workspace downtown. $800 a month, nothing fancy but mine. I created a website over the weekend, leveraging every skill I'd gained in marketing. Professional. Competitive pricing that undercut Maxwell & Sons by 15%. My former colleague Jerome, a brilliant operations manager who'd been laid off 6 months prior, agreed to join me for equity instead of salary initially. You're crazy, Amy, you know that? He said over coffee at our favorite spot on Peachtree Street. Taking on your family's established company? They're not my family anymore, I said, meaning every word. They made that clear. Now they're just competition. Jerome grinned. Then let's destroy them. Maxwell & Sons had gotten comfortable. 40 years in business meant they'd stopped innovating, stopped hustling. They relied on legacy relationships and Grandpa's reputation. But Grandpa was gone and reputations fade fast when service declines. I knew their client list by heart, had helped build half those relationships myself. My first target was Henderson Industrial, the manufacturing company I'd helped Grandpa land 8 years ago. Their CEO, Mr. Wright, yes, married to Grandpa's assistant, had always liked me. You've got your grandfather's instincts, he told me once at a company barbecue. I called his office on Thursday. His secretary tried to brush me off, but I persisted. Tell him Amy Ivory needs 15 minutes to discuss his current supply chain inefficiencies. I have data. Data always worked with Mr. Wright. He called back within an hour. Amy, I heard about Joseph. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Your grandfather was one of the good ones. His voice carried genuine warmth. Thank you, Mr. Wright. I actually wanted to discuss your contract with Maxwell & Sons. I've noticed some concerning patterns in their delivery times and error rates since Grandpa passed. Silence. Then, I'm listening. I laid it out. Over the past 3 months, Desmond had taken over the Henderson account. Delivery times had increased by 40%. Error rates tripled. They'd been charged for premium services twice without receiving them. I had documents. Mrs. Wright had included order records in her email package. I can beat their pricing by 20% and guarantee 98% accuracy. Plus, I'm implementing a real-time tracking system they don't have. You're starting your own company? Already started, sir. Another pause. Send me a proposal. I worked 72 hours straight on that proposal. Jerome handled the operational logistics while I crafted the narrative. We weren't just offering cheaper services. We were offering innovation. Real-time inventory tracking via custom software. Automated reordering systems. Sustainability metrics that aligned with Henderson Industrial's new green initiatives. The proposal landed on Mr. Wright's desk Monday morning. He called Wednesday afternoon. Amy, this is impressive work. Really impressive. But Henderson Industrial has been with Maxwell & Sons for nearly a decade. Switching suppliers is complicated, expensive. I need more than a good proposal. I need guarantees. What if I personally oversee your account for the first 6 months? Any issues, any delays, Any problems at all? I'll refund 30% of your monthly fees. No questions asked. I heard keyboard clicking. He was calculating. Henderson Industrial's annual contract with Maxwell & Sons was worth $5.2 million. I was betting my entire future on my ability to deliver. That's a significant risk you're taking. I believe in my work, Mr. Wright. My grandfather taught me that quality and relationships matter more than anything. Maxwell & Sons has forgotten that. More silence. Then, I'll give you a trial run. 3 months, starting with our automotive parts division. That's about $400,000 quarterly. If you perform, we'll discuss transitioning the full account. My hands shook as I thanked him and ended the call. Jerome hooped so loud our office neighbors complained. We had our first major client. But more importantly, I'd just stolen business from my family. The real war was beginning and I'd drawn first blood. 2 weeks into the Henderson trial contract, my phone exploded. 17 missed calls from various family members. Text messages ranged from concerned, "Amy, what's going on?" to furious, "You stealing bitch." I ignored them all until Uncle Raymond called from Mama's phone. "Baby, please pick up. Your uncle needs to talk to you. It's important." Mama's voice carried a tremor. I answered. "What?" Uncle Raymond's voice came through, tight with barely controlled rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Henderson Industrial called this morning to discuss transitioning their full account. You went behind our backs. To our clients." "Your clients," I corrected. "I don't work for Maxwell & Sons. Remember? I wasn't skilled enough. Didn't have the temperament. This is corporate sabotage. I can sue you." "With what grounds?" Kept my voice level. "I started my own legal business. Approached a client with a better offer. That's called capitalism, Uncle Raymond. Or did your business degree not cover that?" He was breathing hard now. "You're destroying your grandfather's legacy out of spite." That word, spite, ignited something volcanic in my chest. Grandpa's legacy was excellence and innovation. You turned his company into a lazy, overpriced operation that delivers late and bills wrong. I'm honoring his legacy. You're destroying it. "Family doesn't do this to family," he shouted. "You're right. Family doesn't manipulate dying men and forge their wishes. Family doesn't exclude someone out of greed. You taught me that, Uncle Raymond. I'm just applying the lesson." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but my resolve was steel. Desmond showed up at my office 3 days later. My secretary, well, our shared workspace's receptionist, buzzed me. "There's a very angry man demanding to see you. Says he's family. Send him back." I straightened papers on my desk, preparing for confrontation. Desmond stormed in, still wearing his gym clothes, face flushed. "You smug bitch. You think you're so smart. Get out of my office." "This is a shared workspace, not an office," he sneered, looking around at the modest space. "Playing businesswoman in your little cubicle. Pathetic." "That pathetic operation is about to take your biggest client." I smiled sweetly. "How's it feel, Desmond? Knowing you're about to lose a $5 million account because you couldn't do the job?" He stepped closer and I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. "You always thought you were better than us. Grandpa's special little girl, so smart, so talented. But you know what? He didn't leave you shit because deep down he knew. You're not family. Your dad wasn't his real son." The words hit like a sledgehammer. "What did you say?" Desmond realized he'd gone too far, but pride wouldn't let him back down. "Your daddy. Mama's first husband. Grandpa never considered him real family. Why do you think?" "Get out." My voice came out deadly quiet. "Get out now before I call security and have you removed." He laughed, but the damage was done. That poison would spread through my mind for days, making me question everything. Was that true? Had Grandpa seen me as less than the others? I called Mrs. Wright that night. She answered on the third ring, her voice warm despite the late hour. Amy, sweetheart. I was hoping you'd call. Desmond said something today. About my father, about Grandpa not seeing me as real family. Is that? My voice cracked. Is that why? Her sigh carried decades of knowledge. Your grandfather loved you more than anyone, Amy. That's exactly why Raymond worked so hard to exclude you. Joe wanted to give you 40% of the company. He planned to reduce each cousin to 12%. He was rewriting everything. The room tilted. 40%? He called you his legacy bearer. Said you had his vision, his drive, his integrity. Raymond found out in January, right before Joe got really sick. That's when the manipulation started. He convinced your cousins that you'd been poisoning Joe against them, that you were greedy and ambitious. He painted you as the villain so they'd support excluding you completely. I was crying now, hot tears streaming down my face. So the will. Joe never signed the final version. He was too sick by then, kept asking for the papers. Raymond kept saying the lawyer was finalizing details. When Joe died, Raymond presented a will from 2020, before Joe decided to make changes. It's legal because Joe had signed it years ago. But it wasn't his final wish. Can I contest it? Technically yes, but you'd need to prove undue influence, and Raymond covered his tracks carefully. Plus, the legal battle would drain your resources. Joe knew this might happen. That's why I sent you those emails. He wanted you to have ammunition, but he also wanted you to build your own empire. He believed you could do it. The conversation shifted everything. This wasn't about inheritance anymore. It was about proving Grandpa right. Mr. Wright called the next morning. Amy, your trial period isn't even complete, but I've seen enough. Your delivery times are 48% faster than Maxwell & Sons. Your error rate is literally 0. And your new tracking system has already saved us $150,000 in inventory redundancies. My heart hammered. So I want to transition our full account to Ivory Industrial Solutions. Effective immediately. That's our entire $5.2 million annual contract. Can you handle it? Could I handle it? I had one employee and a shared office space. But Jerome was already nodding frantically, mouthing, "Say yes." Absolutely, Mr. Wright. We'll scale up immediately to meet your needs. Good. My lawyer will send the contracts this afternoon. Amy, your grandfather would be proud. This is exactly the kind of bold, quality-driven business he believed in. When I hung up, Jerome grabbed me in a bear hug, spinning me around our tiny office. We did it. Holy shit, we actually did it. We had to move fast. I used the Henderson contract as collateral for a small business loan, $200,000 to hire staff and upgrade equipment. Within 2 weeks, I'd hired 3 more operations specialists, a full-time accountant, and moved us into a real office space. Nothing fancy but legitimate. Professional. The news hit Maxwell & Sons like a bomb. Losing Henderson Industrial didn't just cost them $5.2 million annually. It sent a message to their other clients. The Ivory girl knows what she's doing. Within a month, 2 more smaller clients reached out to Ivory Industrial Solutions, asking for proposals. Uncle Raymond showed up at Sunday dinner 6 weeks later. I hadn't been back to Mama's house since the confrontation, but she'd begged me to come, said we needed to heal as a family. I arrived to find not a family dinner but an intervention. They were all there. Uncle Raymond, Aunt Diane, all 5 cousins, Mama, even my brother looking uncomfortable in the corner. Uncle Raymond stood at the head of the table. Amy, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. You've proven you can run a business. Now it's time to discuss merging Ivory Industrial Solutions with Maxwell and Sons. We'll give you a 25% stake. I laughed. Actually laughed. You're joking. It makes business sense. Together we dominate the market. No. I stood grabbing my coat. You stole my inheritance because you didn't think I could handle it. Now I'm outperforming you and suddenly you want to partner? That's not how this works. Nancy spoke up, her voice smaller than before. Amy, we didn't know about Uncle Raymond manipulating Grandpa. Mrs. Wright told us everything last week. We thought Grandpa really didn't want you involved. And you believed it without asking me? Without questioning why? I looked at each cousin in turn. That's the problem. You wanted to believe it because it benefited you. Desmond at least had the decency to look ashamed. We were wrong. I was wrong. What I said about your father, that was pure jealousy talking. I'm sorry. Apologies don't rebuild trust. I turned to Uncle Raymond. You're a thief and a liar. You manipulated your dying father and convinced your family to betray me. And now that your company is hemorrhaging clients because you're incompetent, you want me to save you? Well, watch Maxwell and Sons crumble. Watch everything Grandpa built collapse under your mismanagement. That's your legacy, not mine. Mama caught my arm as I headed for the door. Baby, please. All this anger, it's eating you up. I'm not angry anymore, Mama. I squeezed her hand. I'm free. Grandpa believed I could build something better than what he left behind. So that's what I'm doing. Ivory Industrial Solutions pulled in $8.3 million in contracts last month. We're opening a second location in Charlotte next quarter. I'm hiring 20 more employees by summer. That's my legacy. Built on merit, not manipulation. I walked out into the Atlanta evening, phone already buzzing with 3 new client inquiries. Grandpa's watch ticked steadily on my wrist, marking time in a future I built myself. They had the name Maxwell and Sons. I had the vision, the drive, and the truth. And in business like in family, truth always wins eventually.